Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Illustrated Media Podcast. I am your host, Jimmy Traina. Thank you for listening. We have a big football show this week. We got Chris Long from the Green Light Podcast, former Super Bowl champion, played for the Rams, Eagles, and Patriots, and is a regular here. Talks NFL playoffs and some other things. And Traina Thoughts with Sal Licata. That's where I get into a lot of what's gone on with the NFL announcers during Wild Card Weekend, where there was a lot of criticism for some crews. Other crews deserve praise. So get into all the media, broadcasting, NFL stuff with Sal Licata in the Traina Thoughts segment. Before we get to the episode, just a reminder, Troy Aikman was on the SI Media Podcast last week, Jim Miller 2 weeks ago, Peter Schrager, Andrew Perloff 3 weeks ago in a year-end roundtable, and Brian Curtis from The Ringer was on last month to do a year in review of sports media. So if you missed any of those, go into the archives, check them out, subscribe to the SI Media Podcast, leave a review on Apple. I'll read it with Sal in an upcoming episode. All right. Chris Long, followed by Sal Licata, big NFL show this week, right now on the SI Media Podcast. All right, joining me now, one of my favorites, always fun to chat with him, how to get him off to get him on. I just said how to get you off. That was, wow. What a way to start.
I'm not sure anymore, Jimmy.
I'm so sorry about that. I should have told you that first.
You're such a gentleman.
Yeah, I mean, really. How to get him on during the NFL playoffs from the Green Light Podcast, Super Bowl champion, Chris Long. What an intro.
That is an intro. I mean, you really blew your load early with that one.
Yeah, exactly. Good job. You enjoying the play? We had a great first weekend for the playoffs.
Yeah, it was awesome. I thought, Miami creating turnovers, like so much hinged on that game not being a blowout, because we really had two blowouts, like 1.5 blowouts. We had Seattle getting blown out in the second half, which kind of went according to plan. And then, like Monday night, I don't think any of us saw that for sure coming, but not shocked that the Bucs, even though I took the Bucs, turned into the Bucs again. I mean, that's who they are. But Miami forcing turnovers really made that game interesting. And then you had damn near another blowout, but a big comeback. So the NFL kind of got lucky in a lot of ways.
I think I'm responsible for the Dolphins keeping it close, because when it was 14-0 Buffalo, I texted a buddy of mine. I was going back and forth, I think, with one of my friends, and I said, one more touchdown, 21-0, and then I'm going to go out till 4:30 and do some errands and take care of some shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was it.
I thought I had the fourth quarter too to gather my stuff, because we had to go and do a live stream. I thought, all right, this game's going to be out of hand. I can go handle some business. I was in the same boat.
Yeah. Two takeaways from that. I feel like Buffalo's not playing great. What's your take on Buffalo? Now, listen, they went through the DeMar Hamlin stuff, and I had heard, and you as a former player, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I had heard from a couple of, media people that that week and the week after, the players were exhausted because a lot of them didn't sleep for a couple of nights, stuff like that. I don't know if that's still a lingering factor, but am I crazy to say there's something off with the Bills?
Well, I think the Bills have gone under the radar as just not being as good as they were last year. I mean, in some ways, I think as good as Josh is, Josh has to do a lot for that offense. And, his picks weren't bad Saturday, really, per se. Like the John Brown one, I don't think they were on the same page. I don't think that's all on him. The Cole Beasley pick where he forced into a tight window, it wasn't an errant throw. It wasn't a terrible decision. The Sealer touchdown's the one you got to take care of the ball on. But, that's kind of their Achilles heel, is you went through this stretch late in the season that kind of started in the Green Bay game with Josh, where he was throwing balls that you were just you're not thinking that through. And, the defense is solid, but since losing Von Miller, you don't have the pass rush that you had. I mean, you're going to play Cincy this weekend, and they get a backup tackle at both spots in Carmen, and then 77 over on the right side. I think Rousseau's matchup on the right tackle is the big one. I actually think the backup left tackle in Cincy did a nice job spelling Jonah Williams, other than the one sack he gave up. But the bottom line is here's a perfect opportunity to take care of a wounded Cincy team and do it in a way that you play to your strengths and you don't have Von Miller. They've also had some issues at corner. I do think they were exhausted. I do. Talking to Mitch Morse on my podcast this week, he talked about, obviously the Bills center. He talked about after that Patriots game, it was like everybody just could finally go to sleep. It felt like, it was just like, we can go home and rest. Because I think it was a long week. It was a long week for me as a former player to watch. I know everybody kind of internalized it because I think for the first time, players and fans were on the same page where there was no blueprint for this. Usually if we see somebody go down and get carted off, there's like, we've seen this before. We're desensitized to it. Whereas this was like totally unprecedented CPR on the field. So there were nights where I was waking up in the middle of the night and checking my phone. I can only imagine being one of his close friends.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That to me, that you summed it up perfectly. What that week was like. I mean, I have zero connection to the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, I mean, I probably had never heard of. Right. I wasn't familiar with DeMar Hamlin before that whole thing, and like that whole week, you were just waiting for news. It was like all you wanted was some news, and I know you probably went through this. I do a pod, you do a pod. You don't want to do anything insensitive. You want to be on top of what's going on, and so if that's what we're going through, I can't imagine what the Bills players are going through.
No
it's
question.
Just incomprehensible.
No question. So I do think, before the injuries to Cincinnati, I thought they were the best team in the AFC. Now it's going to be interesting to see how they use quick game, how they can protect these guys, chip out a little better. Having P. Ryan back there, he's a good protector. We've talked about that at times on our show. Is like, Mixon's great, but P. Ryan gives you something that he doesn't in pass pro. And, I think the Bengals actually hang in there this weekend. I know the line's like kind of big, 5. And it's 5, and a lot of people are betting the Bills, but I do feel like because of the Bills' lack of pass rush, I'm not saying they're bad up front, but maybe they can find a way to survive. When you lose a tackle in the middle of the game, even as bad as Jonah Williams played this year, it's kind of an emergency. You're adjusting on the fly, and they've had to do that a couple of times this year. And I think having a full week to go into this game that they felt good about, they were driving up 7-3 when the game got suspended. It's a good matchup for them if these guys weren't hurt, so they can hang in there.
Now, take me through the mind of a Bengals player here. I know if I was a Bengals player, I mean, I'm not even a Bengals fan, and I think it's horseshit that the game is being played in Buffalo.
Yeah.
How pissed are those players, and do you think that's a factor at all?
Well, I don't think it's a factor at this point. I think maybe there's the initial like, damn, but you can't let, your interpretation of how fair it is seep into how you prepare or the attitude you have going on the road. You have to have an us against the world kind of attitude. I also think because of the circumstance, everybody's pretty compassionate to the process relative to what they'd be if it was something else, like a weather cancellation or something. When we had those snowstorms, there was talk of canceling a game, and stuff like that would really irk you. But I think considering the situation, and albeit this was Mitch Morse this week again, but he was like, listen, when it comes down to the neutral site thing, he said, when DeMar got hurt and we all collectively decide that this was bigger than football, we had to mean it. And whatever happens as a result from a scheduling standpoint happens. And, the Bengals have got to feel like maybe they could be in a better situation, but I don't think it's in their heads all week.
I just don't understand if the AFC title game is going to be played in a neutral site, which I think is absurd on many levels and takes away a lot of the excitement from the game. Then I don't understand why this game can't be played at a neutral site. I understand the Bills had one game. Their record was better by a game, but the game they were playing with the Bengals never got played. So why not play this at a neutral field? I guess.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I mean, I hate the idea. I understand how it came about, but as a viewer, it sucks to watch a neutral site game
100%
in the playoffs. And part of that is, I love outdoor football.
Yeah, of course.
I'm one of these old school guys who likes cold weather and likes to see players, the people's breaths coming out of their helmets, no vape smoke like McDaniel, allegedly.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, but I love that atmosphere that it brings in, having the home crowd and everything. And these fans will travel great, but it's just not the same. And so I'm not gonna complain about there not being two. Selfishly.
I agree. I'm with you. The AFC, it's going to be Kansas. If things go how people think, it's going to be Kansas City, Buffalo, or Cincinnati in that AFC title game. All outdoor, cold weather places, and they're playing it in Atlanta in a dome. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Now, if Cincy beats Buffalo, you're going to get it in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So that's the saving grace here. So people that like outdoor football, you can root for the Bengals, but and they're not afraid of the Chiefs. I mean, now things are a little bit different now with their injuries, but last year with a bad offensive line, they went in there, went down 21-3 and came back and won. They beat them this year. They've kind of had their number.
Can you publicly, not you, but I mean the general you, can you say you're rooting for the Bengals, or are you just like a total fucking monster if you're not rooting for the Bills right now?
No, I think you can get back to, because both teams went through a lot. I mean, I think it was just traumatic to be on the field there. So both teams have been through a lot. The Bills have obviously been through more this year with the bumps in the road and DeMar being a teammate. But I also think it's just, if you like the Bengals, ride with the Bengals. Like I might bet the Bengals this weekend.
I just feel like you're like the total wrestling heel if you say you're rooting for the Bengals over the Bills.
Man, it's tough. Yeah, because as much as I like Joe Burrow and I like the Bengals, I've just kind of admired their team.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Josh Allen's, and I'd love to see him get a chance to play on the biggest stage. And obviously I'm rooting for the Eagles to get there and to win it. But, if they don't, or, even if they do, it'd just be nice to see Bills fans in the Super Bowl again. But obviously then rooting against the Bills in the Super Bowl, although I'd have a very good reason, feels like that's where it feels kind of like sociopathic to root for somebody else, because they've been through so much as a franchise, and then this year.
Yeah. And I've felt this all season long from week 1 to now. We're doing it as well. I mean, nobody talks about the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Chiefs it's like they don't even exist sometimes. It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
Because I actually think the Chiefs are better than Buffalo and Cincinnati.
I think I think Cincinnati's better, but I don't know now, again with the front stuff. But I think part of it is what they do offensively is different. It's a little bit different than they used to be able to just, I mean, it was like watching the Warriors, playing basketball. And now it's more of, kind of moving the ball down the field responsibly and taking the check down sometimes in the power running game. And I also think they play in a lot of I felt like they played in a lot of 4 p.m. slots. The AFC West was down, for much of the year, especially the Chargers weren't even in the conversation. People were like, here we go again with them. I also think there's fatigue, not fatigue with the Chiefs necessarily, but there's just, you take it for granted. It's the novelty. And Patrick Mahomes hasn't gone anywhere. And in fact, in some ways he's gotten better. And so I think it's going to be a lot of fun to have everybody held captive watching the Chiefs in the playoffs because of what you mentioned. I do think like they've flown under the radar as much as a team that's got home field could.
Yeah. And I mean, for them to do what they've done offensively with, after losing Tirico Hill, just the way they plug in other players, Jerick McKinnon's become such a weapon for them. But I think you said it. I think there's fatigue, and I also think there's fatigue, and people are tired of every AFC title games in Kansas City. It won't be this year if they play the Bills, but that's because of the circumstances. Yes. But people want to see something new, I think. But
they do. And if Chiefs have only won one of these bad boys, so it'd still be cool to see them double up and all that.
I still think they're the most fun team to watch. Who do you think is the most fun team? You sound like a Bengals guy.
Most fun team to watch.
Yeah.
I really like watching the Bengals because their back end, I mean, I say this all the time, their back end plays, like they're all physical, they're ball aware. You talk about they took the ball off of Huntley on the goal line. It was the linebacker, or it's somebody stripping Derek Wilson at the 1 yard, or Derek Henry at the 1 yard line. And he goes in the end zone, but it's like they're always on the ball. It was in the New England game, they took the ball away inside the 5. I like the 2 edge rushers. I like Reader. I can't help it. I just love watching Joe throw a back shoulder to Higgins. I love watching Jamar Chase work after the catch. They're just a fun team.
Yeah.
The most fun team to watch in the NFC is probably the Niners. And I think Brock Purdy adds an element to that Jimmy didn't even add. I mean, like, I'm not one of these people that's going to get carried away and put this guy in the Hall of Fame. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's just a backup. I don't think he's just a swing. I don't think he's just, this is going to be the last we hear from him. Now, this offense is awesome, but sometimes what he does going outside the confines of it, mixing it up, using his legs, getting outside the pocket, creative throws, man. I actually think he adds something that makes him even more fun to watch.
Yeah, and they've got. I talked about this with Troy Aikman last week on the pod. I thought the McCaffrey trade sort of like wasn't. There should have been more made of how big of a deal
people
that
didn't
was.
take it. People didn't believe in the Niners at that point.
Right.
So people were kind of like, for what? And they were my Super Bowl pick. They were my NFC Super Bowl pick in preseason. I've kind of hung with them all year, and just watching them kind of make that trade, get Debo back for the playoffs. Like, there were some Kittle injuries early. They haven't been all on the field at the same time. I think Trent Williams was hurt. So like all this stuff, and they just hung in there, and now it's the playoffs and everybody's healthy. Debo looks as good as new. He has like a bunch of explosive plays last week. Christian McCaffrey, some people said you overspent for him. How's he gonna hold up there? I mean, they gave him the ball week 18 when I thought they should have rested him, but he just hasn't showed any sign of slowing down. And they're just really fun.
One thing, to go back to the Bengals for a second, that I do like about them going into the postseason. I'm a big believer in this. You're an old school Knicks fan. I don't know if you remember this, but I mean, this is old school Knicks fan when Pat Riley was the coach. I've said this so many times in the pod. Pat Riley had a theory. He wrote a book about it called The Innocent Climb, meaning when you're a new up-and-coming team and you're good, you need to lose in the championship game before you almost win it. It was, and if you look across sports, it always bears out. Like so the Bengals losing that Super Bowl last year, I actually think will help them immensely this year, because I do think that makes you hungrier. I think you learn stuff, how to handle things. So if they ever got to the Super Bowl, I think losing it last year benefits them.
Yeah, I mean, they got over the hump of the slump after. I mean, that was the beginning of the season. I mean, I agree with you. I think once you kind of get over the initial, like, damn, this is hard to play this long and lose this game and have to go right back to work, and to see people leave and people in the beginning of the season get complacent, maybe overconfident, and overcome that, I think where they are now, that can help.
All right, we've done like serious football analysis here. Let's get to some fun, loose stuff here. First things first, you're a fellow degenerate like me. What are the wagers this weekend? What are we looking at?
Gosh, I'm looking hard at the over in Dallas, San Francisco.
46.
I just feel like there's enough little issues in the secondary for the Niners that we could see some points. I think that San Francisco can run the ball on Dallas. I think they can do enough with eye candy to slow rushers down. I like the over there. I like San Francisco. I'm going to end up betting San Francisco. I'm going to sit here looking at it all week, and then on Sunday at about, hopefully I'm not chasing at 8 p.m. I'm going to put in a big bet on the Niners. So in that game, I like the over and I like the Niners. I'm terrified of Jacksonville because my heart's in it too much. They covered the first game they played, but they scored 17 points, right? I think they're going to have to score to keep up. And it's not like the last couple weeks until, LA was in off coverage and really just pissed it away in the second half that they've been able to get going. So it kind of worries me a little bit there, thinking about betting Jacksonville. I know my heart's going to skew it. I don't know if I like I might stay away. Eagles, Giants, I could see the Giants keeping this thing close. I think the Eagles win this game, and I know I said that the first time they played and they got blown out, the Giants. But 7.5 points is a lot of points. I do think there's enough issues in the secondary, in the middle of the field. I mean, there's been a lot of changing parts for Philly. The run game is a concern with Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, and then like Dexter Lawrence just played as good a game as I've seen an interior lineman play in the playoffs in recent memory, where he was just dominant closing that game out. Him and Leonard Williams. So you got to have a plan for those two guys. That's going to be a tough ball game. And then Sunday, which one am I forgetting before the
well, Cincinnati Buffalo, you already said.
Cincinnati Buffalo. Yeah. I might like the Bengals there. I really might. The big key for them is they're going to have to run the ball. They're going to have to run the ball. And I don't know. I don't know what the box counts are going to look like. I don't. So we'll see.
It's kind of scary. We're on the same exact page because I love the 3 underdogs and the Niners.
Yeah.
So I just like the points in all those games.
I feel like when I looked at the Action Network app last night, I was like, okay, I'm with the public on almost everything.
Yeah. And it was an underdog and under year. So
yes. Yes.
You mentioned Dexter Lawrence. There were 2 videos that came out this week from NFL Films. One was Dexter Lawrence. Did you see it where he's trash talking during the Vikings game and says something?
Yeah,
he said he attributed his strong play to Pilates. And then also told the Vikings that they were hugging him more than his girlfriend. It was a phenomenal video.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, he's got a good personality. He seems fun. And he's just dominant, man. Like, and he's just come on so much in this. How about the Giants? All their draft picks are all of a sudden looking really good.
Yeah.
I mean, Neal, the jury's still out on him, but Andrew Thomas, Daniel Jones are going to extend him. Saquon, we just mentioned Dexter Lawrence. There's just a bunch of guys that are really coming into their own there.
When you have 11 on 11 going on during a game, 22 people on the field, how many of the 22 players are trash talking on average?
All the DBs and the wide receivers. So everybody's a nickel now. So there's a bunch of those guys out there. They're all talking trash. There's always one big trash talker on the D line and one big trash talker on the O line. The quarterback's not really talking trash. Running backs and linebackers talk a little bit of trash. So I'd put that in the 8, 9, 10 to 12 range at any given time, play to play.
And Lawrence was strong. Like Lawrence gets an A for his effort, right? After you saw that video.
Yeah. He's likable. He didn't say anything over the line. He's just kicking the guy's ass.
Besides something about like someone's mother or family, what would be over the line?
Oh,
or is that the only thing?
I think that's
kind of
it. And I think anything that might get you in trouble online, you might not say it to the other person. Right.
Now the other video,
microphones everywhere.
Yeah, the other video that came out, speaking of the microphones, was Sam Hubbard after his 98-yard touchdown. Now you were a defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever have a fumble recovery where you had to run after
50 yards?
So you had a 50-yard run.
Yeah, but there was nobody ahead of me. I was a lot like Sam Hubbard, and it just fell in my lap a lot like Sam Hubbard. And
were you with the Rams, Eagles, Patriots?
I was with the Rams. Robert Quinn sacked Andrew Luck, and I picked the ball up and ran 50 yards for a touchdown.
Okay.
Now it didn't feel like 50 yards. I mean,
what did it feel like?
It felt quicker. It honestly is not as hard as you think not to trip and fall, and that was in my head the whole time. I was like, just do not fall down. Because I'm liable to do something like that.
So were you? Well, the Daniel Jones play against the Eagles on Monday night a few years ago is the ultimate fall down. Were you gassed after 50 yards?
You're always gassed. I mean, I was gassed, but the adrenaline's high, and then you're gassed if another player makes an interception. You're running like a pinball trying to block people, and then go celebrate with them, and then you forget that you got to go right back on the field. So I think that's the hardest part.
You know who the worst people in the world are? Like up there with terrorists. The people who wanted a block in the back on Mark Andrews.
That was close. How'd you feel about when the Jets got blocked in the back by the Patriots in New England late this year?
But that's different. He was going to score no matter what no matter what they did to Mark Andrews. Yeah. It was ridiculous. Here's what I want to ask you too. But did you? Okay, so did you see the NFL Films video of Hubbard where After the touchdown, he's screaming on the sidelines, "No one can catch me. They can't catch me." He's all pumped up, right? And then 1 second later, he's on the sidelines going, "I just kept thinking I was going to get caught. I just kept thinking I was going to get..." Like, he did the flip so great.
Yep, he was in the mind of a player who just made a play, and then he was back to being Sam Hubbard.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it was great. And then did you see the thing with Marlon Humphrey's sister?
No.
Oh, this was great. So during the Ravens-Bengals game, Marlon Humphrey's sister sent a tweet about how hot she thought Sam Hubbard was. And Marlon Humphrey's like, "Even my own family's turned it on me."
That is ridiculous.
It was really good.
You can't do that. Not during the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, come on.
All right, couple of the lighthearted things here before I let you go.
Yeah.
Mike McDaniel is not vaping on the sideline during an NFL playoff game in front of 30 million people.
I agree. Holy shit. Thank you. Somebody, I feel like I just found somebody. I'm watching The Last of Us right now, which is terrific.
Yeah.
I feel like I just found somebody who's not infected. You know?
I mean, what, like, first of all, people are saying he was vaping with absolutely no picture of the vape.
Actual evidence.
Right.
There's no smoke. People are saying that, I can see it's flat. It's so it's flat.
You couldn't see shit. He had a big leather O.J. Simpson murdering leather glove
in his hand. There's something in his hand. Somebody showed me that. They circled it. But they go right past Sharpie Ultra Fine.
Right.
To it's got to be a marijuana pen. Okay. Right. And to that I ask, you really think he's smoking reefer on the sidelines? Like it's Madden? You think he's dumb enough to do it? Like, there's edibles. Right. There's, hey, there's Zyn. If you're into the jewels, you can just pop a Zyn in. You haven't seen this guy vape all season long. You're going to tell me he's gone unscathed all season long and they catch him in the playoffs.
First of all, okay, if it's a Sunday 1:00 game against the Texans, maybe he can try to get away with that. Like, standalone game with 30 million people watching, Roger Goodell watching. He's not taking that chance. And the other thing is, too,
how about vape while the defense is out there?
Or vape at halftime. Like,
just like walk over to where the ball boys are, reach down like you got to get something, and then blow it down. You always blow it down.
I would make this. This is how far I would go with it. I don't think there's ever been a vape pen on an NFL sideline from a player or coach.
I think maybe there's probably been a vape pen on an NFL sideline
with a player.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying preseason is crazy.
Preseason.
Yeah.
Preseason is.
I don't know. I'm not insinuating that I know, but if I had to bet, I'd say there has been one.
I'm just saying saying it's not coming from a player or a coach.
I'm saying you never know. But I'm saying on the sideline,
right?
Maybe somebody forgot it was in their pants. That sort of thing. Okay. But no. Listen.
And also, don't people on the sideline, don't guys on the sidelines hold like handheld, like heaters, like things that
they hold heaters. I think he had a Sharpie Ultra Fine marker, and I think that's why in the picture you think this black thing's kind of flat and it's not like perfectly cylindrical. It's because a Sharpie Ultra Fine has a tab on the side of it, and if it's turned the right way, it looks like it's a flat black instrument that you might smoke nicotine or harmful drugs out of.
That would probably be like, I would say that's like a $250,000 fine by Goodell.
At least.
Yeah. That's why it doesn't make sense. Last thing, I know you got to go. Trevor Lawrence beats the Chargers. He goes to Waffle House.
I love it.
Where would you go after a playoff victory?
In what city? Like when I was in St. Louis?
Give me Philly.
Oh, Philly. Philly, by the time I was in Philly, I'd probably go home. But I used to go to Buffalo Billiards. There's like a little pool hall. So I'd probably go to Buffalo Billiards. I was in St. Louis. We'd probably go over the river to the east side. I was young. The strip clubs were open till after 2 in the morning. So after Pepper Lounge closed, we'd go over there. So I'd say I'd probably end up over in Illinois.
So are you saying, because when I saw the Lawrence thing, I was obviously, it's great that he's going to Waffle House, but in my head, I'm thinking, now this is because I'm old. If I was a player, like I'd want to go home.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why I said when I had kids, it was.
I was going to say, is age the factor there? Like if you're, 27 and under, you're going to go out after game, 27 and over.
Yep. Just the getting drunk. like the putting alcohol in your body in that state can wreck your body for the next 2 to 3 to 4 days. I mean, it can linger into the next week if you're too old. So I used to stop. I did not party after games.
So early in the career, and then
but he's not a drinker. He's just sober, walking around the Waffle House.
Yeah.
So actually, I don't think there's any issue at all.
He did say that they called and like rented it out ahead of time. So initially people that he just walked in as a random.
Yeah, see, I'm just walking in. I'm not renting the Waffle House. We have slightly different profiles, but
you're not a first round quarterback.
Yeah, with
as soon as you're a quarterback, yeah. Last thing before you go, Brady, Rodgers. What are they going to do?
Brady's leaving. Vegas seems like the safest bet because it's hard to expect certain teams to accommodate a guy who can't leave the pocket. I'm not knocking him and needs a strong run game and an offensive line. And then I think Aaron Rodgers, I don't know. This is just pure speculation. I think he's probably done this time. I don't know. Maybe the Jets, they just hired they're talking. Did they hire Nathaniel Hackett or they're just talking about
they're
interviewing Nathaniel Hackett?
I would say this. I would love to see Aaron Rodgers on the Jets for one reason only. Aaron Rodgers versus the animals here in the New York media. Oh, it would be really bad. He would be an idiot to come here because he wouldn't last here with that shaman guru esoteric bullshit. That would be out. Yeah. All right. I don't want to see Tom Brady play for the Las Vegas Raiders. You
might have to.
Don't sully your reputation.
He just played for the Bucks.
Yeah, but he won a Super Bowl with them.
I know.
That offsets everything.
Yeah, it does.
He's going to go be in a division with the Chiefs. It's not going to be good for him.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But the alternatives are not great either.
Well, go to Fox and get $375 million. That's a hell of an alternative.
But it's not the football. He loves the football.
Well, he's 45. He's played enough.
You're right.
All right. Thank you, Chris. All right,
Jimmy.
All right. Thanks. I hope I got you off.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you sure did. You sure did. I'm going to go now.
Enjoy the playoffs.
All right.
Thanks for coming on. Appreciate
it. Later, dude.
Take care. All right. Joining me now, as he does every week for our Traina Thoughts segment from WFAN Radio in New York, SNY TV in New York, Sal Licata. Sal, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. You feeling better or what? What's your status?
Much better. I'm much better.
Sound it, look it. Good to have you back.
Back to 100%, I think. So we'll see what happens. So, yeah, it was very bizarre. Let's start with this. How did the wagers do this weekend?
Not bad. Here's what screwed me. The Bills not covering a 4-point tease. The Bills not covering 4 points as the third leg. I had the Niners, Jaguars, Bills in a tease. So that set me back a little bit. Then I lost with the Vikings, Cowboys parlay. So the Bills set up a bad Sunday, but then I got it back Monday at least with the Cowboys.
Got it. The big theme from the weekend, I'm curious for your thoughts because I don't know how closely you were wrapped up in it, but the announcers were a big theme, given this is the SI Media podcast. Obviously, Al Michaels and Tony Dungy got destroyed for the Jaguars-Chargers game. And Romo took a beating. You have any thoughts on those two things?
I followed along with you, right? So I'll see your tweets, and I know you're the expert on this. Matter of fact, I saw your tweet. So Saturday night I watched the game on an iPad. Jaguars Chargers was on the iPad.
Why?
So I had it on mute. Well, why do you think? Why do you think? Because I'm married with a kid. That is why. I mean, There is no other way around it. Saturday night. Now, this Saturday is going to be different with the Giants. Last Saturday, Jaguars, Chargers, knowing what was coming Sunday, that was an iPad mute situation. So I did not get a feel for Al, but I was surprised to see your take because I know you love Al. And I just assumed by following along, it was because it was a crappy game, right? But then when they start coming back, I was assuming he was going to be excited. Then I learned that he was not. I watched the whole Romo game. I didn't have any issue with Romo. What's the problem with him? He's being Tony Romo. What's the issue?
Is he frozen for you, Shelby? Oh, now you're on. All right, now you're unfrozen. You were frozen for a minute.
Oh, okay.
All right. It might be me because now I'm getting your internet connection is unstable, which I don't know why. But all right, I'll pick it up here. Okay, all right, I'll just pick it up here. All right, so you didn't really listen to the broadcast, like you said in the beginning. A lot of people were giving Al a pass because the game was terrible. It was 27-0. Dungy, I think, got more criticism than Al. Here, I just want to give a couple of thoughts on this. I think what hurts is Dungy had never done a game with Al before, and now they're doing a playoff game. Right. He did the games all year with Herb Street. I don't know why Herb Street didn't call that game. Now, I know this. So Herb Street is not an employee of NBC. It was an NBC broadcast. He works for Amazon and ESPN. Now, I don't know if NBC made an ask for Herb Street. I was told NBC said that early in the season they made the decision to make it an NBC broadcast and use Dungy. Did they do that after they had asked ESPN and ESPN said no? I don't know. Why ESPN would say no and prevent Herb Street from doing the game? I don't understand. There's no competition. The ESPN had the game on Monday night. This was on Saturday night. I think it's bizarre that Herb Street does the game the whole season on Amazon and then he's not there for the playoffs. Now, NBC said they wanted to make it an all NBC broadcast, but Kaylee Hartung was on the sidelines, who's not an NBC employee. So I think I think Al was fine with Dungy, but I think Al probably wanted to have his regular partner there. I don't think Al likes to just have people coming in for one game.
He also probably felt I want to say annoyed with the whole season, but like you said, he never wanted to leave NBC to begin with. So he gets essentially demoted. He's got to deal with the crap games with Thursday Night Football. Then, even when you come back, you're still not – he's Al Michaels, and he's not on the number one team, and he's with the new broadcaster. So, not a new broadcaster, but a new partner for that particular game. So I think all those factors played a role.
And on Sunday Night Football, he would get 20 million viewers. And on Amazon, they struggle to get 10 on a good week. Now – and I wrote all that in my column, I think, on Monday, and someone sent me a tweet, and they're right. They said, if that's the case, Al's doing the game, he's got to suck it up. He's got to give you a great performance. And I don't think Al was as bad as everyone thought. I thought there was a lack of energy during the comeback. But Al Michaels is not a screamer, never has been. If you're expecting screaming and yelling, he's not going to do that. And then on the game-winning field goal for the Jaguars, what hurt Al was he was focused on the flag instead of saying it was good. Now, also, was Al hurt by the fact that Tony Dungy was in a coma for the whole game and basically, didn't have
I'm
any
sure he
emotion?
Was, because if you're working with somebody with zero energy, that might make you flat too, or at least now it shouldn't, but I could understand how that might bring him down a little bit. I'm not trying to give Al a pass, but the guy's one of the greatest broadcasters of all time. And now we're going to drag him for a play. Give me a break. People are
NBC's in a really tough spot because they get 2 playoff games and they only have 1 broadcast crew for the season. It's not like CBS and Fox where they have 6 crews each. They have 1 crew. It's Tirico and Consort. So
their problem was not Al. Their problem was Tony Dungy.
Well, and here's the thing. And then last year they had the problem because it was Drew Brees, who was awful.
Didn't know the rules. Yeah.
And now Tony Dungy comes in there and sounded like, he had no interest in the game. And they took a beating. What did
Romo do wrong? Like I watched that game. I didn't get he's being Romo.
I do think the Romo thing is a lot of let's build you up and then tear you down. I think there's a lot of that going on. But
you built him up. Were you going to tear him down?
Well, I don't think he's as bad as everyone else. What people are annoyed with, people are annoyed that he doesn't talk in complete sentences and makes a lot of sounds. And listen, Tony was hurt by the fact that CBS told him to stop predicting the plays. That was like Tony's bread and butter. That was Tony's strength. And everyone told him to stop predicting the plays for some reason that I don't understand. So
I do understand that, by the way. I get why you are saying it hurts him as a broadcaster, but as a viewer, me personally, I don't want to know what's happening. I don't want, it's great that he can tell that. I don't want to have him break down everybody. Oh, look out, they're going to X receiver here. I don't want to know that. I want to see it develop before.
Oh, see, I like to. Yeah, see, I'm the opposite. I want to know that. I do think Tony. The one criticism I would have with Tony is he does step on Nance a little bit too much. The week before when the Bills played the Patriots and they ran back the opening kickoff for a touchdown the week after the DeMar Hamlin injury, Nance had the call, and then Tony was screaming and yelling, and that's probably a place where he should be laying out. Tony doesn't lay out. Tony should lay out a little bit.
Right.
Tony gets excited, and I like that. And I don't know how you tell a guy to be less excited. I do think he probably repeats things like he says, "This is the game. This is the season. This is the season's on the line. This is for the season." You only need to say it once. But I don't. Excuse me. I don't think Tony has regressed as much as everyone else thinks.
Right. To me, he's the same. I never loved him as much as you or the people that loved him, and I don't think he's as bad as people are ripping him. I think he's the same guy.
I'll say this, right, and you summed it up perfectly right there. Like, I think Tony's a guy, either you like him or you don't like him. I don't think there's an in-between, and he does a different style of broadcast than any other analyst. Now, I personally think Buck and Aikman are by far the best booth.
You feel it, too, watching them. You just feel it. I haven't given a crap about Monday Night Football in years. Obviously, playoff is different, but when they do a game, it feels special. Right. The way that Al Michaels' voice makes it feel special to me. But
Troy Aikman is a totally different analyst than Tony Romo. You have to like Romo's. I like that Romo's excited. I like that he comes off as a fan. But yeah, I would have liked Romo to get into why on earth the Dolphins couldn't get the play, into the huddle, and why they were getting delay of games every 5 minutes and burning timeouts like crazy because they give me some analysis on that, on what's going on. Right. And I thought Burkhardt and Olsen were tremendous on the Giants-Vikings game. Olsen has really improved.
I think that they also are starting to, if not already, have that big game feel.
Yes.
Obviously not to the level of Buck and Aikman, but I feel it with Burkhardt and Olsen.
I agree. Olsen's gotten much, much better as the season has gone on. And people have to remember, for Olsen, this is only his second year doing this.
Right.
Last year, he was on the 2 crew, the B crew with Burkhardt. That was his first full season. This is his second full season. And you know what I like about Olsen? Very concise, very straightforward, gets in and out, tells you what's going, doesn't, go on and on and on and on. So,
and he's got personality to go along with it. And not as goofy as Romo, but he's got the personality there too, where you could have some fun as well.
I'd like to see a little more personality from Olsen. A little more. I think he takes it very seriously, and I get it.
Yeah, I think he's got it in there, though. I
agree.
Glimpses of it.
Yeah.
So I think he's got it in there that maybe that'll come out eventually. And I think if it does, he could be better than Romo.
I agree. The first game of the weekend was Joe Davis and Moose Johnston, and I don't know. Joe Davis yells a little too much for my liking, and Harlan yells, and I like it. Gus Johnson yells, and I like it. But for some reason with Joe Davis, it doesn't feel like the constant yelling doesn't feel natural. So for some reason it irritates me. But he's fine. He's a good play-by-play guy. They didn't ruin the game like Tony.
I had no issue with it. Yeah, see that I think that's where I'm at. There are certain announcers that make the game feel like a big game, and there are announcers that just do a solid job that you don't really notice. And then there are some that annoy you to the point where you don't want, I have to actually watch it on mute or it aggravates me.
Yeah.
Joe Davis kind of was in between for me. I have no issue with him. I think he's solid. Moose Johnson, we're still using him in this spot.
He's as cookie cutter as it gets. The Al thing is really fascinating for me because, like I said, Al never has been and never will be a screamer and a yeller, but you needed a little more excitement in that fourth quarter. I don't know. The game's in Jacksonville. It's not a big-time stadium. It's not like Lambeau.
Say?
I don't know.
I didn't see it. I know because it was in the New York Post Plus section, I guess, the Sports Plus. He did an interview, I believe, with Marchand, your guy. Did you read that? Do you know what he said, Al?
I don't subscribe to New York Post Sports Plus. Do you? Because I'm fascinated by this.
I don't, but there are sometimes there are articles that I want to read. I probably should just look it up and subscribe to it. It's probably worth it. But Al did. Martian, at least I saw the headline that said Michael's response to the online criticism. I thought maybe you would get him on eventually too.
Al chalked the criticism up to just angry people online. And I get where he's like. Listen, he didn't make mistakes. He wasn't like fumbling the calls. He just didn't have an excitement level that people wanted.
I think the penalty flag, getting caught up in that at the end was a mistake. Because had he not done that, it would have been a fine final call. Right. I think that would have been fine.
As I said on Twitter, and I wrote this in my column, what offended me more than anything Saturday night, besides Tony Dungy just being awful, was when the Jaguars had a blatant false start penalty, which caused the whole Joey Bosa thing. They didn't call it. And Terry McAulay, as the rules analyst for NBC, gets on there and says there wasn't a false start. What's the point of the rule analyst should only come on to explain a rule, to say, this is the rule. They don't need to come on to tell me what I just saw and then lie to protect the ref. I saw that it was a false start. You don't need to come on and tell me it was or wasn't. And then you come on and you say it wasn't when it was. What's the point of the rules analyst?
Yeah, showing his true ref colors. They're all making these refs or whatever now more part of the broadcast, where it should be less. You're right. They used to use them the way Fox used Pereira initially was the best way to use it. Now they're all over. It's too much. Every time there's any semblance of a little bit of a question, we got to go right to Gene Steratore and Terry McAulay and see what these guys have to say.
I really thought that awful roughing the passer on the last Vikings drive was going to come back to be a factor, but it turned out that it wasn't.
And by the way, people were saying that's the worst one ever. It was not even close to the worst one.
I agree with that. I agree.
It was it was bad, but
right.
All right, it was bad, but I've seen at least 5 worse this year, way worse this year.
Yeah. And then this week NBC only has one game, so you're going to get Tirico and Collinsworth.
By the way, I think Tirico is great.
He's very good.
I wasn't sure how I'd feel about losing out, but Tirico is. I think he's fantastic.
His call of Sam Hubbard's 98-yard fumble return touchdown was tremendous. Added so much to it as Hubbard was running for dear life. It was a great call by Tirico. All right. Yeah, and then so Fox is sending, which I think is going to be interesting. They're sending Burkhardt and Olsen, which I knew they would do, to Cowboys-Niners because it's the Cowboys, so they're going to get the A call. Right. And it looks like, excuse me, the Joe Davis and Johnston are going to Giants-Eagles. I'm going to be curious to see the fan reaction for that.
Oh, I'm down on that already. Right, so it's two Fox games, one CBS and one NBC.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I love the fact that the game hasn't. Why am I coughing? I'm sorry to all the podcast listeners. I love the fact that the game hasn't even been played yet, and you're already knocking it.
Because that to me, Giants Eagles, the biggest game for me on the board. Being here in New York, I want the best crew. I want Burkhardt on that game.
Yeah,
I get why they're not doing it, but
it's all about Dallas.
Joe Davis and Moose Johnson. Oh, that crew is a barely watch on a 4-screen on a Sunday at 1:00. You're talking about Saturday night primetime Giants Eagles.
I'll be very curious what the Giants and Eagles fans think of Darryl Johnson.
Give me Iron Eagle. I wish CBS had 2 games this weekend.
They'll have it next year, so I think. All right, let's move on here. Who are you a bigger fan of? Beyonce or Rihanna?
Rihanna.
Did you see what?
Are we talking music or what are we?
Music, right away. You go to not who you'd like to cheat on your wife with. Who you? Music.
Rihanna. I've always been a bigger. I like Beyonce, but I've always been a bigger Rihanna fan.
Did you see what happened to poor Stephen A. Smith?
No. What happened?
Okay, so Stephen A. Smith, he's out promoting a book, and he does an interview, and he must have been asked about this year's halftime show, which is Rihanna. And Stephen A. Smith made the comment that he likes Rihanna. He's a Rihanna fan, but there's nobody like Beyonce. Beyonce is on another level. And apparently, so you know how Beyonce has the Beehive? I guess Rihanna, she has her version of that. And the Rihanna fans went after Stephen A so hard that he had to do one of those like, gun to your head crime scene apologies from a SUV while he's being driven around doing book tour interviews. He's in the back of an SUV, looks like a hostage video, and he's apologizing to Rihanna and the Rihanna fans. So I just hope you don't get in trouble because you just came out. Now I got news.
I love them both. I just like Rihanna's music a little bit better. That's it.
I actually like Rihanna's music better too. So we could both be in big trouble.
She's got, bigger records. No, Destiny's Child, different story, I guess. But Rihanna's solo, way bigger, I think.
Listen, I don't want to turn this into like a serious discussion, but it is amazing that we are now at a point here in 2023 where you're not allowed to say that you like one artist more than another artist.
No, you can't disagree with popular opinion in anything. Really.
It pisses me off that he apologized. He should have said, "Here's the deal. I love Rihanna. I think she's going to do great at halftime. I'm more of a Beyonce fan."
Right.
And the hostage video there. But he has to apologize. You're not allowed to like one singer more than the other. It's absurd.
It's ridiculous.
Now, it would have been one thing if he said, "Oh, I think Beyonce's shit and I don't like her music and she's..." He didn't say that. About Rihanna. If he would have said like, "I don't like Rihanna and Rihanna's terrible," and all that. He didn't say any of that.
Apologize? Why the hell would he even apologize?
Because the Rihanna fan, because you know how like they have, the Taylor Swift fans and the Beyonce, they're like lunatics and they go crazy. I guess Rihanna has her group too.
So what? Let them tweet it away.
Is there a Sal Licata hive? Like when you?
Yeah, right. No, they all hate me.
No one's out there defending your takes.
I need some support. I'm getting all the negativity. Who's apologizing to me? I want to have somebody get my back.
It's absurd. That you can't even say you like one singer more than another. This is where we are in the world.
Pathetic.
All right. Last thing, we're taping this on Wednesday, January 18th. And today is the 69th birthday of, I think, for me, the three greatest heels in the WWE, in the WWF history when we were growing up in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
You were a Hogan guy
who
was the most boring guy ever. And I rooted for the heels. And the three heels who were the best in the 80s were Piper, Ravishing Rick Rude, and Ted DiBiase. Today is the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase's birthday. Now, you as the Hulk Hogan fan, of those three heels, did you hate, as a kid, when you thought it was real, did you hate one of them more than the others?
Probably DiBiase was the one. Piper, I've obviously learned it since, but when Piper was a heel, I was a little too young because I came in about WrestleMania 3, let's say, where Piper was on his way out. He comes back as a good guy then in WrestleMania 5 or whatever it was. Right. So I don't look at Piper. Like I said, I know the history now, but I never as a kid looked at him as a bad guy. DiBiase was front and center heel. I'm trying to think like if I hated him or the Honky Tonk Man more, maybe.
He was a good heel. He was a good heel.
Yeah, he was great too.
That's a good call. Good call.
Even Savage when he was bad and they broke up. I don't know. There were a bunch. I always though was entertained by DiBiase. I may not have liked him, but he's entertaining. That's
my point. The heels were entertaining. Hogan was not. Ravishing Rick Rude getting in the ring. What I'd like right now is for all you fat, ugly, sweaty New York lowlifes to shut up while I take amazing. And then, it doesn't play well today, obviously, but you could make the argument the greatest skit in the history of the WWF/WWE was DiBiase when he brought out the little kid and said, "I'll give you this money if you bounce the basketball 10 times." And the kid bounces it 9 times. On the 10th, DiBiase kicks it, says, "Oh, too bad."
See, I remember those. I know I've watched them since. And I think I read his book that came out years ago too, DiBiase. But I remember those as a kid live. Those stuck with me. Those vignettes stuck with me. So obviously he did something right to have that type of impact. He was great.
There's a huge part of me, and I'm being dead serious with this, that wishes the WWE would say, okay, everyone knows it's scripted. We've come out, and it's the reality, or all this. We're going to go back to the early 80s and have these crazy characters and pretend everything is real again. Because that's when it was fun. That's when it was fun.
I agree, but are we just being nostalgic? Like, do the kids growing up now love it for what it is?
When was the last time you watched Monday Night Raw?
I couldn't even tell you.
Right.
Years.
But if you had the $1 million man there kicking the basketball on the count of 10, you'd at least go try to find the clip. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. You have one best bet for the weekend?
No, not at this point. I do not. I haven't really given it a ton of thought. I mean, initially I'm thinking Chiefs, but because I have a tough time with the other games. I haven't decided yet where I'm going to go with the Bengals and Bills. Cowboys and Niners have been my two teams all year long in the NFC. I hate that they're going head to head in this one. I'm torn with that. I'm staying away from picking against the Giants. I have no idea. So probably right now it would be Kansas City, but I haven't really given it a ton of thought. Do you have one?
I'm going to bet the 3 underdogs and the Niners. I just think the Chiefs never cover. So, and then you're getting 8.5 there. You're getting 7.5 with the Giants, who are very hot right now. So I like getting that, especially get the hook there. And the Bengals getting 5, which I think the Bengals are going to be super motivated after they got screwed by the NFL where they're playing this game on the road. And I don't love the Cowboys. I think that's going to be a rough matchup for them. I think the Niners defense, I think will
yeah. I don't have a feel yet. I'll tell you this. We've got 3 of the best matchups you can possibly have. The Chiefs Jaguars would be 4th in that. The other 3 are, I mean, you can't ask for better matchups than that. I
agree. Should be good. All right. Enjoy it. Hopefully no iPad. You get them on the TV all 4 games this week.
No, these will be all 4 games on the TV, no doubt.
All right. We'll talk to you next week. All right. Later. All right. My thanks to Chris Long and Sal Licata. If you missed any recent episodes of the SI Media Podcast, go into the archives, give them a listen. Troy Aikman was on last week. He was excellent. Author and reporter Jim Miller 2 weeks ago. Peter Schrager, Andrew Perloff for a 2022 year-end spectacular 3 weeks ago. Brian Curtis from The Ringer did a year-end review of sports media with me at the end of December as well. So if you missed any of those, go into the archives. Check them out. Subscribe to the SI Media Podcast. Very important. Subscribe. And if you have a minute, leave a review on Apple. I will read it on an upcoming episode in the Traina Thoughts segment. All right. Enjoy the divisional playoff round here in the NFL. We'll see you next week. Stay safe and take care.